How's it going, everyone? It is Drago, and I'm going to be doing a review of the Heroes manga, which is a collab between Fairy Tail Eden Zero and Rave Master, which of course are all done by the same author. And this has been out for a couple of years now. I read it when it first came out week to week. I just never have personally covered it on the channel, which I had put up a poll on the channel to vote as to what you guys wanted on here, and Heroes did come out eventually on top. And right off the bat, I really like this series. I think it's very fun that you get the kind of best elements of every series within this. In a very quick disclaimer, I have not watched or read Rave Master completely. I've read a few chapters of it, and I haven't seen any of the episodes of the anime. So that's just kind of a disclaimer there that talking about Rave Master, I'm probably not going to mention it all too much. I know details of it and just certain things that have happened in it, but I don't know too much compared to Eden Zero and Fairy Tail, where I'm actively, reading and watching it. I'm going to go over things that really stood out to me as to what I liked and just impressions overall. First off, the color page art that had been made for this series is just amazing. I love seeing the group spreads, and they would make very cool wallpapers to, have. And as we're talking about arts here, I'm just going to quick go into the cover pages for all of the chapters here. I absolutely love that they gave each, chapter, a different grouping. Chapter 2, for example, they gave the cover to the main girls in the series, that being Lucy, Rebecca, and Ellie. For each of these covers, it was super unique because it showed how the three on the cover, or however many were on it, how they would interact. So for example, the main, female leads, they're all just chilling on a bed, which that Lucy, Rebecca, Ellie cover is one of my favorites, and I'll go over a couple more that I liked throughout this whole series. Just as I was reading through these chapters again, I just found this one just kind of funny. I don't maybe so much like it for the art, I just found it funny for the interaction. So for chapter 4, you have, a cover with some of the boys, that being, Gray and Weiss, and I'm blanking on who the Rave Master guy is, sorry. But the two in the forefront, they're like really excited to be like in this photo, and Gray's just in the background like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not like into this. I really like the chapter 5 cover, which had Urza, Homura, and again, I'm blanking on the Rave Master name. And the other cover I can distinctly remember off the top of my head is the cover with Wendy Hermit, and I have no idea who the Rave Master person is, but I just kind of love the idea that Wendy and Hermit would become friends and they build like sandcastles together. And then the Rave Master person just kind of sitting there chilling, like kind of watching these two have a play date. There's other fun covers, like they did a villain cover, which didn't really have anything to do with this series whatsoever. You had a Jalal cover. You had a cover that had Gajil and Levy on it, which they really didn't have much of a role in this series. And then a pretty cute cover, which would be pretty much all the mascots, which would have like Happy, Carla, Plu, Pino. And then you had the bonus chapter cover, which was a color page with the main girls on it once again. So enough talk about covers. Let's finally get into talking about Heroes. When you first start reading the series, it picks up with the Fairy Tail group, and they're all chilling at a beach, which I feel like this series in particular kind of cements relationships between people. So particularly like through this, you get a lot of like Lucy really watching out for Natsu, and vice versa, and kind of a lot of little relationship moments that I feel like you get in the regular series, but like maybe not so like in your face. You get an example of this very early on in this series with like Natsu running off on his own and Lucy being concerned that, he's running away from them, with her saying, don't go too far, Natsu. And then he's just like, yep, you got it. I know it's like really small, but I just kind of like this little, banter with them. Which, coming back to this after a couple of years since reading it, I freaking love the meeting between Natsu and Shiki. Their like first appearance together is so fun. And I just love that they're fighting over this fruit and they both don't want to give it up. And Shiki's just like, screw it, I'm going to eat it. And Natsu's like, wait, you're not allowed to do that. You're a freaking monster. So then you have, a fight ensue. I quite love how this fight wrapped up with Rebecca showing up. And she's like, what are you two fighting over? And they're like, we're fighting over this fruit. And she's like, do you mean all these fruits like right behind me? And there's just like a freaking whole jungle filled with all these fruits. And they're like, oh my goodness, we're fighting over nothing. Which is where you get into, why the Eden Zero crew is here, is because they want to go find Homura. And I really like the little conversation that they had. And, they're trying to be secretive to Natsu to not disturb their culture. And Natsu's just like, you realize I have like superhuman hearing, right? Like I can hear everything you're saying. But I quite like how this conversation ends with them like basically becoming friends, and it has Shiki, start crying and literally ask Natsu to be his friend. And I like that, they're buddies now. So definitely the weirdest side of this story is the whole imagination stuff. I remember when I first read this, I didn't maybe so much like it, but actually rereading it, I think it's fine. I think it's kind of cool to get random weird things to happen. And I do like that it's basically Mashima putting himself into his own manga and kind of getting to put his own backstory in a weird way. Honestly, the Hero's manga really does have a good message behind it, with the whole like imagination thing and, making stories and, loving the characters that you create. Kind of going past the imagination stuff is when you get the first reveal of the Rave Master crew. And you can tell Mashima's style really changed from when he drew Rave Master, because if you like look at a photo from them, like when he was drawing it to this, like dang, it's night and day. Which, even though I haven't read Rave Master or watched any of it really extensively, I really like Haru and Ellie. I think they're such a cute little couple, and I do know that they're like, actually a couple. And just another like side thing that I absolutely love is the Eden Zero crew, meeting the Fairy Tail crew, which obviously has Happy, as part of that. And they're like so shocked that, they have a version of Happy. I like that they even call out that, Happy has a white tail compared to the Happy in Eden Zero that has a black tail. And even just random little details of Shiki going up to Urza saying that she looks like, Elsie Crimson. Which I absolutely love that, Natsu and Shiki are just the most in sync friends during this whole like investigation debrief. And I think the weakest part of this whole manga to me is kind of when you get to Homura. It's not even with Homura whatsoever. It's mainly when you just get to Ichiya, the Butchicle Gang, and Muskoi. Just kind of rereading this, I wasn't really jiving with everything that they had to offer into this. It was more or less like, hey, I don't really want to see these guys. I really want to see the interactions between the three main groups, which is where you start to get the whole setup for this actual series. And that, starts with the Rave Master group going into the Imagination Oasis Temple, interacting with the Great Creator, which pretty much this whole series revolves around this stone, which Haru wants to destroy because it's a, dark energy, and, whoever possesses it will get like corrupted by it. So he starts using that stone to cast the power of imagination, which starts destroying pretty much everything around this island, and pretty much everyone is getting affected by this. Which, another weird choice for me is, why did Mashima decide to have the villain turn into Jalal? And even uses like the heavenly body magic that Jalal uses. So it's very much Jalal, but he calls himself Genesis. I definitely kind of get it, because you have a version of Jalal pretty much in every series that he does, but I just think it could have been cooler to be someone else. Not going to cover some of the weird stuff that Genesis does to some of the characters. You know what I'm talking about, mainly with the tentacles. And once they escape from that, I absolutely love that, you know, everyone's kind of doing their own attacks and stuff. And Rebecca doesn't really have anything, so Urza gives her a bow. Which Rebecca does some freaking insane work with this bow. She is awesome as an archer. Which the Rave team gets sent flying back by Genesis, which is how Natsu and Shiki are able to finally meet Haru, which I absolutely love them trying to explain what Pino is, because they want to call her like a rabbit, but they don't really want to say she's an android. But like Rebecca's like, well, she's not a rabbit, but it's way too hard to like not say that she's a rabbit, so I guess she's a rabbit. I love that like Wendy's in the background, like, so she's not a rabbit. Going back over to Natsu, Shiki, and Haru all meeting for the first time. Absolutely love that, you know, they see Plu, and, you know, Natsu thinks it's Lucy's spirit, and Shiki thinks it's a dog that works at a restaurant he's been to. And Haru's like, what? You think he looks like a dog? I absolutely love that Natsu somehow remembers that, like, Lucy's spirit, you know, Plu is from Canis Minor, and that he's a dog. Like, was not expecting Natsu to remember that. Which kind of love that Natsu tries to take Plu back immediately because he knows it belongs to Lucy. Which is where Happy's just like, hey, Natsu, you do know that there's like practically like 20 million Plus in the spirit dimension, right? And just as they're kind of getting things sorted out is right when Genesis shows up and decides to challenge all three at once. Which of course they don't really know he's Genesis, but they think he's, you know, Seagrain, Jalal, you know, take your pick. I really like the shot with all three of them getting ready for battle. It's such a cool panel. And seeing them just kind of all do their own attacks to attack Genesis is pretty freaking dope. I do think the main three went down pretty easily in this first round, and especially since Natsu's already fought Jalal at one point already, so he definitely knows his power, and it was super easy for them to start fighting between each other, because Natsu and Shiki, you know, end up punching each other and they get into a big fight about it. Which Haru was the only one that like had common sense here that like, hey, maybe we shouldn't fight, and he ended up getting Urza'd. And Genesis just straight up turns into pain, man, because he's like, suffer, cry, and no despair. And we get our main three deciding to split up and do their own separate things, with Shiki going for Homura, Natsu trying to, you know, win the fight against Genesis in the name of Fairy Tail, and Haru just wanting to be a team player, and he's like, whatever you two, if you don't want to lend me your strength. Which just as the main three boys are splitting up, the main three girls are grouping up, which is where you have Lucy and Rebecca meeting Ellie for the first time. Which is at the same time you get Weiss finally showing up in this story, meeting Gray, and I don't remember the other guy's name. And Urza and Julia are meeting up with Homura, so you get the main groupings of everyone within the series now. So Genesis starts summoning a ton of monsters, which is kind of a problem within this whole series, is just a ton of just random, you know, generic monsters get fought by a ton of people throughout this whole series. But it makes a way to finally show additional areas that are not on this island, hence us getting the Fairy Tail Guild and these monsters showing up there, and the rest of the guild makes a cameo and they're able to fight all these monsters, even doing a cameo to the Rave Master people and their world having to fight these monsters. Doesn't really show anything with Eden Zero too much. You get that like a little bit later with the Shining Stars, which is kind of another complaint, that you don't get much of the Shining Stars in this, which is kind of sad because they're kind of a main part of Eden Zero. And you get Weiss making a device to, you know, find everyone within the series and get a massive group shot to happen. As much as I don't really love that there's another like tentacle bit within this story, I do quite like how this like one goes, because it actually has kind of a cute resolution. You have Rebecca, Lucy, and Ellie, you know, all fighting these monsters, and you get tentacles involved once again, which attacks Lucy and ends up having Natsu come in and, cover her up, which I could have sworn was from the Stone Age chapter of Fairy Tail. Do not remember this in the slightest being in this. In my mind, it was just in that Stone Age chapter, which in Natsu's mind, he's like, okay, cool, I'm covering Lucy, we're protecting her so no one can see her. But at least for Lucy, she's like, hey, everyone in this room besides you is a girl, what are you doing, Natsu? And this is where you get into the kind of cute moment of it all. Because pretty much right when he's like, okay, cool, I'm go now. That's right when Haru runs in, which I quite love that Ellie just shoves her freaking baton straight in his eyes. And then just right when you get the reaction to that, you get Rebecca having Shiki just crawl up behind her, which I love that he goes behind her like such a scared little dude, and he's just like, there's bugs, please help me, Rebecca. So all three of them are having to deal with their men in different ways. Meanwhile, there is still monsters completely around them, which I love the second that they're like, hey, can you guys stop messing with us for a second and actually deal with these monsters? And immediately all three of them just go into immediate attack mode, and I love the shot with all three of them just attacking these monsters. It's such a cool shot, and I like all the girls' reactions to it too. It's pretty dope. Mind you, since I haven't read Rave Master, I actually don't really know Haru and Ellie's personality fully. I think it's kind of cute that Ellie is trying to protect Haru from seeing other girls because she knows it's a weakness for him, and I love the cute little face they're making, and that she thinks that their outfits would get Haru too excited. And just as they're kind of talking about their outfits and whatnot, you get the rest of the gang showing up. Tora Weiss's Hero's creation came in clutch, reuniting everyone. And this is pretty much right when you get the introduction of the 4 shining stars. It is so brief of a cameo from them. It's such a disappointment that they didn't get more. But I do quite love Happy in the background of the 4 shining stars freaking out there's another me, which is where you get it broken down that the dark bring crystal that they've been going after this whole time isn't exactly real, and that there's another real one on the island, which in all actuality is the whole island itself. And this is where you get the awesome group shot of literally everyone in the main series is here. So going into the final battle, I quite like that you get shots of everyone fighting together, which is mainly within their groups. So the Urza archetype is all fighting together, the Gray archetype is all fighting together. Lucy, Ellie, and Rebecca are off, doing their own mission, and then Natsu, Shiki, and Haru are doing their mission, which the 3 of them fighting Genesis for round 2 is pretty baller. I really like that are kind of combo-y attacks and leading into, one another, which the one bummer with this being Jalal knockoff, you don't get any insanely unique magics because he's just using heavenly body magic and Grand Chariot, which for the 3 of them not really that much of a challenge to defeat, especially since Natsu had already defeated Jalal once before. But the group did do some very cool combo attacks, especially holding Genesis in place with the gravity. I absolutely love the page with Ellie, Lucy, and Rebecca kind of going off doing their own mission, and she's our heroes are fighting, so we gotta do our own mission. And I absolutely love that Rebecca says, if they're our heroes, I guess we're heroines. And I think it's just cool because the 3 of them are such a cool combo. I love it so much, which they basically end up meeting Mashima himself. I know he's not named that, it's pretty darn close, but he advertises himself as the god that created this oasis. Hence you basically getting Mashima's real life backstory within this series, which is kind of hilarious. I mean, obviously he didn't have Greek gods or whatever within it. He's just embellishing it to make it sound cool within this story, but like, it's kind of his backstory. With him even taking it like a step further and saying his imagination is so great that it literally turned into an island. Hence the island oasis that they're on right now. So Mashima here is basically like, hey, you probably can't destroy this whole island. That's a little bit of a tall task to ask. This is such a cool thing that like Lucy like starts to brag about this, like, oh, that's our guild's specialty. Like, we are really good at destroying things, with her like humbly bragging about it. Then you get like Plu doing his Rave Master thing, and the three girls, combining their power to, help Plu out. In the meantime, you get the continuation of the battle with Natsu, Haru, and Shiki against Genesis. You kind of get the scenes intercut, between them and going back to the, girls group, with them kind of blocking out the power of imagination and letting the guys finally get the upper hand, and also a very cool, full page spread, finally defeating Genesis and breaking the crystal. I really like that both teams were like absolutely integral into defeating Genesis. Like the guys had to fight him, but then the girls also had to do the additional thing to basically weaken him for the guys to defeat him. So like both were absolutely necessary. With Genesis's defeat, the island starts to like, light up and disappear, with all the monsters fading away, and you get the final shots of like Fairy Tail, the Rave Master world, and even another additional shot of the Eden Zero and the Shining Stars. And you start getting everyone to reunite once again, and the first one to meet up with their significant other is Ellie and Haru, which I really like their hug, and I like, Lucy and Rebecca's reaction to it, which immediately is followed up by Natsu joining in and praising Lucy, which they look super sweet together. Then Shiki coming in and like trying to get like a piggyback ride. And Rebecca's just like, they had both sweet moments and I just get stuck with the kid. And I like Urza, Homura and Julia talking about, each other's strengths. Gray has an absolute way of finding like the cutest things imaginable, and like it's such an unexpected side to Gray that like he's like into cute things and does like cute talk around them. And you get Urza turning into a bunny girl and holding Pino, which is adorable. Gray is so butthurt in the background, like, I really wanted to have Pino time, but no, you had to turn into a bunny girl, re-equip, and take her away from me. And there's just like a lot of fun banter between everyone in this. You get a lot of fun little character bits between everyone having conversations at the end of all these fights. One of the final interactions I really like is Haru showing Rebecca his like, 10 Commandments sword. And Rebecca's like, hold up, I needed to get a video of this. I gotta post it to the YouTube real quick. So as this world's, falling apart, it's getting like little cherry blossoms. You get a very, nice quote to send everyone off into their own worlds once again. And I do really like the lines that go with it. I think they are very nice. I think it's very, fitting for each series. And I like that, the final line for it is like, no matter what world you're from, you're all heroes. And you get a really nice shot of the three groups going off, saying goodbye to, go back to their daily lives. And honestly, if they're like still chilling around, they probably would be really good friends. The story does continue after this. You pick up with the Eden Zero, which I'm just going to say, I don't love this ending very much, because you get the Eden Zero crew talking about, meeting these new people. Shiki's crying about, missing his friends already. I like that Happy's talking about like the differences between the Fairy Tail Happy. And technically not everything went back to the way it was, because now you have the Butt Jiggle Gang in the Eden Zero universe, then Ichiya in the Rave Master universe, and Muskoi in the Fairy Tail universe dressed as Natsu, and that's literally the end of the book. And if that would have been the end of it, I would have actually been kind of annoyed, because that was like not the greatest ending, because I really like them like just saying goodbye and that would have been it. But luckily there was a bonus chapter called Heroines, and this chapter mainly focused around the main three girls, Lucy, Rebecca, and Ellie all going to a hot spring. They're actually kind of doing a hot spring tour, so they're going to like different locations in the 3 worlds. I feel like the first one here has to do with the Rave Master universe. The 3 of them are really fun together, and their first conversation in the Rave Master area, I'm guessing, it's mainly just them talking about embarrassing stories about like when they were like naked. And I like that Lucy's and Rebecca's were like callbacks to random things that happened in their stories, and Ellie doesn't really have one. And before you even dive into that any further, you're immediately into the Eden Zero, which is actually super cool seeing them like in the Eden Zero, like looking at the stars and stuff, and with the 4 shining stars and interacting with Pino, and they're like having such a fun time with him. And you get a classic witch massage and a sister being a masochist. How dare Rebecca and Homura trick Lucy into this? Like, you know that they were being real mean. And before you get anything further with the Lucy being tricked into the massage, we cut over to the fairy tale side of things, and they're sharing a bath with additional fairy tale members. And I absolutely love that Lucy wanted to get Rebecca back, so she's like, you know what, Rebecca, I got a super special bath just for you. You want to follow me? And I absolutely love that she got Natsu in on this, and she thinks it's like the best prank ever. So she has this like giant like steaming pot, and she's like, okay, Rebecca, time for you to get in. And the second she turns around to see if Rebecca's there, she's literally gone. But just as she thinks that Rebecca's probably gone, she's like, well, maybe she actually went into the pot. So Lucy goes to check, and as she checks, she ends up slipping into the pot herself, which triggers Natsu to activate his fire. And that must have been insanely hot because it burned Lucy's clothes immediately. Which I do love that Natsu immediately knows, like, oh gosh, this is Lucy's voice, oh no, and just stops right there, doesn't like go any further, checks in on Lucy, which that's quite the view, Natsu, you really gotta look there. And you find out where Rebecca actually went. She was smelling food, and she found Shiki eating some nice food. And I really like them eating this meal together. They're very cute together. Even Rebecca had to like clean off Shiki's face because he's being a messy little boy. And just as you get the like romance stuff, you get Ellie by herself, which has Haru entering the bath. She apparently still has her batons on her, and she just chucks them straight into his eyes, which I'm shocked this man isn't blind by now. Which he's just gonna go leave, but they end up sharing this bath together, which I think is a very cute moment for them. And I really like Natsu, you know, helping Lucy out after burning her alive. That he actually has this like genuine care and compassion towards his friend. I like him saying like, you know, why did you even go in there? And she's like, well, why indeed? But they both can like smile it off, and she's like, well, it was at least fun. And I hope that we can meet everyone again, and I think we will meet again. And that all of us are connected. It was a very nice way to end it, even getting a shot with them like holding hands at the end, which is Ellie and Haru. And yeah, that is basically the end of Heroes. So my thoughts. The series has so many fun moments for, you know, Fairy Tail fans, Eden Zero fans, Rave Master fans. And I think there's so many sweet character moments and just like, you know, nice fun touches. And just really nice fun touches around like pretty much every corner in this little manga here. I very much highly recommend that you do go out and read this because it is such a good time. I do have some grievances with this. You don't really get anyone using power-ups. Pretty much everyone in this series pretty much only uses their main abilities, like nothing too special. Like you don't get like Urza really re-equipping at all, or like Lucy using Star Dress, or pretty much any of the ether gears really being used. Like Rebecca doesn't use like Cat Leaper or any of that. Which I will say, pretty much when this was probably being made, like Eden Zero didn't really have many of those power-ups probably at all yet. So that's probably a reason behind it, and you didn't want like Natsu or Lucy, you know, powering up, and, you know, Shiki and Rebecca probably not being able to yet. Otherwise, really my main complaint is just that whole Bud Jiggle Gang, Muskoi, and Ichiya, like, having a pretty darn prominent role in the series, and I just didn't think a lot of their stuff worked very well, which really, if that's my only complaint, and kind of the fact that the 4 shining stars weren't really used all too much in this, which, I mean, they're kind of an integral part to Eden Zero, so I'm kind of shocked that they weren't like down with the crew, you know? I get why you don't have like the full Fairy Tail guild there. I mean, you got cameos pretty much with all of them. You don't really get too much of cutting away to like Rave Master people all too much. It's just a simple, fun little crossover event that like has so many fun character moments, just so many nice moments for just, you know, characters in general. Like the Fairy Tail characters have really nice moments together. The Eden Zero characters have really nice moments together. The Rave Master characters have really nice moments together. And then combine it all together, like they are really great. So rereading this again really brought out some really nice feelings, and I was really happy to reread it once again. So what are your guys' thoughts on Heroes? Leave it in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of you really enjoy this series as well. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I know this has been a very long video, and this is Drago, signing out.